Hi, and welcome to this edition of Fresh Hope for Mental Health. Our mission here at Fresh Hope for Mental Health is to empower you to live well in spite of your mental health challenge by sharing insights through interviews, practical tools for living well, encouragement, and courage for overcoming all from a Christian perspective. And now, here's your host, Pastor Brad Hoefs.
Well, welcome everyone to a very special edition, our first time that we're doing a podcast where we're doing voices and you're going to be able to see us. And I apologize to both Catherine and Beth that I didn't tell them this because it just kind of wound up being this way today. So welcome to this edition, everyone. I'm Brad Hoefs, your host, and our goal here at Fresh Hope for Mental Health is to empower you to live a full and rich life filled with faith in spite of a mental health diagnosis or in spite of your loved one's mental health diagnosis. So welcome, everybody. Well, first of all, I've known Catherine and Beth for some years now, and I think each of you at different times have picked me up at the airport there in Ohio.
I believe that's true.
Yeah, and that's probably how we met, and then, had to put two and two together, and now I could tell you who they are and what they do, but I'm going to ask them to tell you who they are and what they do. And but they are with a good friend of mine, Dr. Steve Gersovich, heads up a ministry called Key Ministry, and I'm going to let you guys tell them about that and what your latest project is. And by the way, listeners, if you have a child with a special need, you're going to want to check out this ministry, but you're also going to want to listen very carefully to this podcast because I think we've got some good things potentially to offer you. And then also, you'll want to pass this along if you know of somebody who is a parent of somebody with special needs. Okay, now I shall go for it, ladies.
All right. Well, thank you, Brad. I think you and I probably met at an Inclusion Fusion Live conference several years back. So IFL is the big national disability conference that Key Ministry hosts each year. So you came to Cleveland, which is where I'm based out of. And so my name is Beth Golick. I'm the operations director for Key Ministry. And part of what I do is I work with churches who have questions about the more traditional disability ministry. Whereas my colleague, Catherine, go ahead.
I am the mental health ministry director for Key Ministry. I've been in that role for several years. And so when churches and families have questions about mental health needs and how churches can come alongside, they reach out to me.
Absolutely. Yes. And let me tell you, folks, these ladies are great at what they do. And they're very approachable. So if you want to know more about Key Ministry, I would say be sure and email them. We'll have all those kinds of things in the show notes for this today. So you guys have tell me, if I had a child with special needs, what I might find as far as what you offer and how you might be able to help me.
So if you're a parent, probably the way you've heard about us or how you've come in contact with us is because of our blogs. So Key Ministry has two blogs, the Church for Every Child blog, which is primarily ministry focused. And then we have the Not Alone Special Needs Parenting blog. And we have a team of writers that contribute to that. And they just have a whole wealth of knowledge, experience, personal experience to share. And so I think a lot of parents have discovered us because of the blog.
Sure, that makes sense. And where could people find those blogs?
Well, you can go to the Key Ministry website. I'm sure this will be in the show notes, but it's keyministrysingular.org. All of our blog information is there. We have our probably last couple of years are accessible on those two blogs that Beth mentioned, but we also have some archived blog posts that you can also access through our website.
Great. Great. So you guys started something new here recently, right?
We did.
Tell
We
me
did.
about because I want to let my listeners know about your podcast. So if you would tell us about your new podcast for Key.
Well, it has an extremely catchy name. Are you ready? It's called Key Ministry, the podcast. So there you go.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
But what makes it a little bit unique is we have co-hosts. So it's not just one of us doing it. There's actually 4, 5-ish doing it. So in addition to Catherine and myself, Dr. Lamar Hardwick is one of the weekly guests or hosts, and Sandra Peoples. And so these are names that may or may not be familiar to you, but I encourage you to check them out because they just have an incredible background, and we all have different perspectives. We all come from a slightly different, doing a little bit different ministry. So each week you're going to hear from one of the co-hosts.
That's great. Yeah. And it's probably where all podcasts are found, or like iTunes,
Yes.
Google Play, places like that, right?
Yes, we're on all the major platforms.
Right.
And, just to branch off a little bit from what Beth said, Sandra Peoples speaks real specifically to parents of children with disabilities. She is a parent herself. She also works with the Southern Baptist of Texas Convention with disability ministry support. Lamar
I think
Hardwick,
I've met her.
Yes, you have it.
Her
IFL.
Husband's a pastor,
Yes,
right?
yes,
Lee is a
her
pastor.
husband is a pastor.
Mhm.
Yes. And then Lamar Hardwick writes about disability and kind of disability and theology type perspectives. He goes by the handle of Autism Pastor on social media platforms.
I've met him also. Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
So he brings an extremely unique perspective to this because he is a person who has autism. And so he brings that perspective in as well. And
yes, and he's very real and transparent.
Yes.
He is.
Yes.
Yes.
Wonderful. Yeah.
And it just is such an important voice for the church and, for ministry leaders to hear.
Sure.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
And then Beth speaks a lot to to churches that are working on disability inclusion type ministries, belonging type ministries. And then my focus, of course, is on mental health.
Yeah. Wow, you guys, that's how often do you put out a new podcast then?
So every Thursday. So if you subscribe to Key Ministry, the podcast, then every Thursday morning, you'll have access to that week's episode. Mine tend to be a little bit more like nuts and bolts, I love children's ministry is kind of my thing. And so I love talking to children's ministry people, children's pastors, who maybe, aren't in quotes special needs ministry, but who maybe, there's this kid, they are needing to learn about what hidden disabilities look like in a Sunday school classroom. And so what I like to do is equip children's ministry leaders with tools they can use and, just help them with that awareness so that they can be more welcoming to families impacted by disability, including hidden disabilities and mental health conditions.
Yes. Yeah. There always is that kid or a few kids that you wonder, how can I reach them? Or they're just, that something's not quite there, but you don't know how or whatever. I'm going to tell you guys that are listening, these people with Key Ministry, these people are the real deal. They're not, they may be running something that's national, but they're accessible. And also, they really have a heart for this. And it comes from the heart that you just heard Beth speak about with, the love of children and children's ministries. And I know that Steve has that same heart to make sure that the church is accessible to families that have these special needs in them. Now, I think it goes without saying that families, and especially parents who have children with, special needs, are under a lot more strain, or an additional strain. It adds a level of stress to life that's there to, basically life is already stressful for anybody parenting. There's always all these issues with parenting. I'm watching my own children parent their children, and I'm every now and then I'm glad that they're having some struggles, and then I can say, see what we went through. But it's stressful. It is. And even as a grandparent, it's stressful sometimes. So if you add in there a special need, and I have one grandchild that his special needs are that he is so brilliant and smart, and he's in second grade or third grade or second grade last year, reading at an 18-year-old's level and higher. And
it poses some challenges.
Absolutely. And it is, now some would say, well, that's not a disability, but it could become a disability if not steered the right direction and challenged appropriately. But the teachers told our kids that you've got an 18-year-old to early adult living in his brain in an 8-year-old body, and so yes. Now, do you see that parents really do end up suffering some and dealing with all the stress and that kind of stuff, Catherine?
Absolutely. In fact, one of the things that we focused on this year at our Inclusion Fusion Live conference was the mental health needs of caregivers, because talk about isolation and feeling like you're alone in your struggle. For parents, particularly who have children with really high needs, it can feel like there is no one else in the world that understands, your life, because it is so very different from the majority of the people that are around you. So, one of the points that was made by some of the presenters was that, there is coming this crisis of, mental health needs among the caregiver population, because, our population in general is aging, and, all parents want their kids to grow up and move on with their own lives. But, for many caregivers, this is just not ever going to be a reality for their children. And it creates an incredible burden that can lead swiftly to significant anxiety, which can, lead to depression. And it's very detrimental, not only for the caregiver, but for the whole family, if they're not really supported well with their tangible needs, but also with their mental health needs.
Well, and caregivers oftentimes have problems caring for themselves, and even finding and carving
Most
out
definitely.
the time to do that. Yeah. So what would be any advice or insights you guys would give to people that are caregivers of children with special needs?
Well, I'll speak to that first. There are resources and, online communities of support from people who get it, who already live that life, or and that can be incredibly helpful for individuals who really, are isolated, may not be able to leave their home, or certainly not easily leave their home. So, we really encourage people to connect with those groups. We have some groups recommended on our website for individuals who are looking for that kind of community. We would just encourage people also to just, look at the resources that we offer, follow us on social media, because our writing team does really an outstanding job of not only highlighting their personal experience of, this is very challenging, but also saying, but these are resources and these are things that we did that really were helpful for us. So, I would encourage anybody who's in that caregiving role to,
and that's
to find
so
us.
important to know that, I'm of course into the idea that peers, people with lived experience, can really help each other.
Yep.
And gain insights. If you have, let's say, 12 people in a support group and all 12 have children who have mental health issues, that's a wealth of knowledge right there.
Absolutely.
And much more than what one singular person who holds a degree might have, you
Right.
know.
Right.
And it's tried
Yeah.
information. Yeah. Beth,
Yeah,
did
let me
you have
let me just
anything?
add here too
Oh.
that that the statistics say that on average mental health diagnoses come 5 to 7 years after the onset of symptoms. I mean, just think about what an incredible gift it is if you can shorten that time period because you're having conversations with other people who have walked that path. So,
Yes.
I mean, it is invaluable to get connected with individuals who have a similar diagnoses in their family, similar life experience to the one that you're living.
Well, and if I might just add, and then we'll go to you, Beth, but I would imagine that we had our son is adopted, and he was a special needs adoption, so we had no idea if there would be special needs or not. And biologically, his parents had some issues. Some could not be passed down genetically, and some were kind of unknown. Well, now we know that brilliant, high genius level stuff was there and seen as being a disability for his biological mom. And as a parent, every time there's something that you can't figure out, you begin to worry that something's seriously wrong. And then I would suspect there's that dread of finding out, okay, this is autism, or this is a cognitive issue, or whatever it might be, that sometimes even as parents, we might lengthen that time of where problems start and we dread the diagnosis, right? But
Absolutely.
if we
Yeah,
love our child, there's no embarrassment of there being something wrong. In fact, I would say, let me live with you for 24 hours. Sooner or later, I will show you what's wrong with you. Everybody's got stuff that's wrong with them.
That's right. That's right.
So,
and I would just add that, I mean, one thing I kind of sort of joke about is that nobody gets into this work unless it's personal. And there's a lot of truth in that. It's personal for me as well. But I would just encourage your listeners that, behavior is communication. And even if you are afraid of that label, what that label will do to your child, you don't have to have a label for people to see the behavior. And people are going to think what they're going to think.
And they fill in blanks.
They do. And so it's, in my experience as a parent, and in my observation as, someone who works in ministry, it is much better to find the truth, because the truth will unlock the correct treatment, the correct path that you and your child need to go down. And, without getting to that truth, then you just, often are just having at a minimum frustration and delays. Yeah. Yeah. So it really is better to pursue the truth, no matter, whether you want to hear that truth or not.
Absolutely. Beth, I hope you haven't forgotten what you were going to say.
I'll see if I can remember. I guess what I was going to say is I was going to take it to speak about churches for a second. Sure. And that is, so Key Ministry was founded almost 20 years ago. So we'll be 20 years old on Christmas Eve this year. And, but the mission has really, like, the beginning mission and what we've been doing is help equip churches to welcome families, particularly with kids with those hidden disabilities and mental health conditions. So we talked about, churches welcoming families with kids with, and I'm using air quotes here, special needs. And, churches can kind of figure out, okay, so this, this child maybe, let's say, is in a wheelchair and needs some accommodations. Like people have, they figure that out and they're working towards how to be more welcoming and accommodating. Right. But it's that awareness, you just now we've been talking about, the anxiety that not just the kids, but that individuals, parents, families experience. What does that look like, and how does that become an obstacle for a family to be able to be fully involved in the life of the church?
Right.
So those are some of the things that we're working with churches to.
Yeah, because what I understand is many times they just stay home, right?
Right. Right.
It's there's too many obstacles,
Yes.
or
That's right.
the anxiety level of what could happen, might happen, does happen, could be problematic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who was it? Chuck Colson's daughter, or
Emily.
some-
Yes.
Emily.
Yeah, I've heard her story, and
Yes.
it just touched my heart.
Yes, it's very powerful. Very powerful.
Yeah, because and we also all have a dear friend, Chuck Swindoll's daughter. She deals with issues of, what if this doesn't go well, and you were talking about on Christmas Eve. This is just a side note. This is kind of how my brain works. I'm sorry. But, Beth and Catherine, I don't know if you're going to do any special thing for your 20th. I'm sure you will, but I could lend some writers to you who could actually write a Christmas Eve service based upon your directions, and you could provide it to churches that would be sensitive to the needs and all of that, because Jesus came for the broken.
That's right.
The brokenhearted, and sometimes there's
idea.
some real brokenheartedness in it's because my wife and I have another ministry called Worship Outlet, where we provide creative worship services for churches.
I love it.
Let me get you in touch with her and see if we can't get you a special thing that's just for you guys to offer to churches that might be willing to use it. Or
I love that
and then
idea.
they could write a family version of it also.
Yeah, I love that.
Well, one of the things that I feel that we might do with Fresh Hope, and this is where those of you who are listening today, if you have this need, I want you to let us know. Email me, Pastor Brad at freshhope.us. And what I'm thinking of is the potential of starting a few Fresh Hope groups for parents who are experiencing, it doesn't even have to be diagnosed anxiety disorder, just anxiety and depression and frustration and exhaustion and all of those things, to start a group where it's only parents of kids with these issues. And so if that's the case, we'd make it an online community, I'm tired of ministries talking about working together and let's collaborate and all of that, and then nothing ever happens, because it's kind of more important, the branding and all of that. No, let's start a group, and if there's more of them that start, let's do it, because it is about people, isn't it?
It is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what else can you tell me? Anything else that's because I joked with these ladies, we could always talk about Dr. Steve and his issues now, since he's not here today.
Right.
He's a busy guy right now.
He is for sure.
Yeah. But anything else that our listeners might need to know, or that you'd like to share with them?
So we both are kind of working on some projects. Probably one of my favorite things that I get to do is each month we host a video roundtable. So it's a Zoom like this, but interactive. So people get to be on and ask questions and
Absolutely.
participate. But we pick a different disability ministry topic each month. And so recently we did a Ask a Behavior Specialist. And so we brought some behavior specialists on, and people had the opportunity to just ask different questions. We would do a variety of topics, but it's things that just top issues that our churches are dealing with and we as ministry leaders are dealing with.
Yeah.
Our next one is called Potty Talk, and it's about toileting policies and procedures in your church.
Yes. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's, it's reality. And so we're going to talk
Absolutely.
about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When you're approaching 65, it's reality.
Well, that's the
too.
thing. I mean, no, but in all seriousness,
Yes.
if we live long enough, the disability community is, the people group that we're probably all going to be in at some point if we're not already. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And now tell me, on your podcast, one of the things I didn't ask you a little bit ago was, tell me some of the topics that you've talked about so far on your podcast, or anything you've got coming up.
Yeah.
Well,
Catherine, tell them about the camel, that one. That's
okay.
like that one.
So my focus is on mental health kind of topics. And my first one was on lament, which is something I know that you've talked about, Brad,
Yes.
in some of your work, and just the importance of that. But then I guess it was last month, I talked about removing a straw from the camel's back. I mean, we've all heard that adage of, the straw that broke the camel's back. Well, what if you could take that one thing off of, for example, the family, where the parents are 100% caregivers for a very disabled child, and just some ideas that we've seen, churches and individuals do over the years, just nothing, super fancy or expensive or flashy, but just helping with one thing in day-to-day living that will just give the family, the caregiver, a little mental space to be able to de-stress and be able to think a little bit more clearly.
And that's key. We need that mental space. All of us do. And we need downtime. We need a time where we do something we enjoy doing that puts life into us. Absolutely. And not just take it out. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would also say that, we have other, online events. We have an events tab on our website, and encourage people to go there. Another project that I'm working on that Brad actually has contributed to, thank you very much, is the title right now is Finding God's Ministry Purpose for Your Life. Because one of our big goals for the next couple of years is to really help equip people who maybe, have had some experiences that make them kind of uniquely equipped to be able to step into ministry of some kind. It's very much driven by like 2 Corinthians 1:3-7 that talks about how we comfort with the comfort we've received. And so, so I've been talking with some ministry friends like Brad about some of their experiences, because there is kind of a pattern to the way that these things like the Fresh Hope organization have come about. So our first webinar in that series will actually be tomorrow with our ministry friends, Tom and Julie Meekins. So,
great.
Yeah, so it'll probably be, after tomorrow by the time you're listening to this. But I encourage you to go to our YouTube channel and check out that webinar whenever you have an opportunity to look for it.
What's the name of your YouTube channel?
If you go to keyministry.org, at the bottom of the page, you can click on YouTube, Vimeo.
I thought you were going to say the name of that is Key Ministry, the YouTube channel. Well, I just want to encourage you folks who are listening. And, even if you're a caregiver to, let's say you're the spouse or you are the parents of a child that has a mental health issue, or a teen or a young adult or whatever, that is a special need, and it is considered a disability. It's covered under the Disability Act of Congress or whatever that is. And the thing is that I would encourage you to check out keyministry.org, right?
Yes.
And because, like I said, these folks are real, and if they aren't doing something in this area or whatever, where you need help or need encouragement or need support, I suspect they'll know somebody who is doing it, or can network you with the right people. They so often say it's not what you know, but it's who you know. Well, you've got to have the right connections to get the right information sometimes. And I think, especially in the diagnosis area, I think of how important that would be to have the contacts and the network of people who've been there and gone through this, because there's those aha moments where you say, you know what? I need to have the doctor think about this. We need to look into this, because maybe it's not that, but it's this instead, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, God bless you guys for the work that you do. Thank you so much for being with me today. I appreciate it. And we just bless your work. We want it to succeed. We want you to reach more people. I hope you're so overworked they have to hire more people to be on staff, and that Dr. Steve can't be a doctor anymore, seeing kids, so he has to do this ministry and go for it, you know. So thank you so much. And
Thank you, Brad.
you bet. For those of you who are listening, thank you for joining us. We invite you to share this with your friends. If you have comments or questions, email me, Pastor Brad at Fresh Hope, or contact Key Ministry. They'll be happy to answer emails and touch base with you. Like I said, we are not AI people. We're not where you're going to get some robot that knows how to answer the question. You're going to get real people, and you're going to be able to connect with us. We're accessible. So I'd encourage you to check all of it out. Share it on social media. Share it with any friends that you know that might be dealing with these issues as well. And if you'd leave a comment on, especially if you're listening on iTunes, that helps other people find this podcast. So until the next time, may the Lord hold you with fresh and new hope daily. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to Fresh Hope for Mental Health. If you have an opportunity, please review, share, and subscribe to the Fresh Hope for Mental Health podcast on iTunes or on the service that you use. We encourage you to share our podcast on social media with your friends and family. Previous podcasts of Fresh Hope for Mental Health can be found at freshhopeformentalhealth.com, iHeartRadio, Stitcher Radio, and iTunes. Fresh Hope is one of the leading networks of faith-based peer support groups internationally. For more information about Fresh Hope, go to freshhope.us.